On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk CEDIA's new industry report, Vantage and PureEdge lighting, and the art and science of power. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 323, Bridging of the Gap.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Just Add Power, the global leader in video over IP solutions with systems that give you easy installation, unmatched scalability, and outstanding performance.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by some of my closest friends. First, we have Mr. Joseph Whitaker. He is the VP of Business Development at Origin Acoustics. How you doing, Joseph?
Doing good. Loving life. Glad to be on your show after a bunch of hit and misses for the last 3 hours supposed to be on.
Well, you had a baby. Stuff happened,
Yeah,
all the goodies. You know. Someone who has not had a baby recently is Mr. Stephen Bronner, even though occasionally he acts like one. He's the president of Pro Audio Georgia. You're welcome, buddy. How you doing, my friend?
I am outstanding, man. I love you so much. No babies recently. That is not going to happen. We've had our 4 and we are done. So, yes, things are going great. It was a beautiful day here in Georgia. Now we got a little overcast, but it's always beautiful in Georgia, baby.
Last but certainly not least, we have a new guest to the show. It is Vince Luciani. He is a senior sales engineer at Amatech. How you doing, Vince?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. Sorry you're stuck with me and these two guys. But it'll be a great show. You and I will hold it down. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. If I get my computer to actually scroll. A new market report has come out from CEDIA. It is the Integrated Home Market Analysis of 2021, released and summarized in April of 2022. It covers a ton of stuff that respondents to the survey submitted online from August to October of 2021 and covers a whole boatload of stuff. Joe, you've been kind of on all three sides of this now. You've obviously been involved pretty directly with CEDIA and getting these kind of surveys out there and started. Obviously, you've run an integration company for years, and now you're working on the manufacturing side. What's the main takeaway here from this report? And I'll preface it with the fact that this is mainly a U.S. report at this point. But what's the main takeaway that you found in this, and why is this important?
Well, the main I'm trying to figure out what kind of math they're using. So, you've got, there's some interesting stuff in here. But when you start crunching the numbers, it kind of can get sketchy. So, you've got your average annual revenue, right, of 2.2 million, but then it goes into average project size is like 26K. So that's misleading information a little bit when you break those numbers down. The more interesting stuff to me was looking at the makeup of the companies, right? How much the 2 to 3 man, 2 to 4 man companies are doing. How are the 6 to 9 man companies doing their revenue and that kind of thing. That's where I think the show and growth is. And the fact that they put out there that there's currently, 11,000 integration companies. Well, last time I counted or actually paid attention to this a couple of years ago, I mean, that's a good couple thousand more than pre-pandemic when you really look at those numbers. So, of course, in the business side, looking at the revenue and the amount that's out there for the industry, okay, that's great. But when you see the growth of the industry as far as new businesses that are actually, making enough, grabbing enough attention to be counted in that 11,000, that's where I see the real interesting thing is those pre-pandemic numbers to now. I mean, you're 2,000 more than we were in 2018 and 2019 coming out of the pandemic. So that to me, that's the strength of the industry rather than just the dollars we're throwing around.
Yeah, that's a good point. Stephen, when you see this, when you follow this, interesting math aside, and I'll throw a caveat out there that I unless you're going to put numbers on the table, I have a really hard time trusting any survey that's just like, hey, can you complete this survey? Because of course I do $5 million a year. Of course I'm putting that down. I ain't telling you I did 500,000. Yeah, out of your mind. Anyways, as an HTP, as an integrator, what do you take away from this? Is there anything to take away from this outside of maybe some of those emerging trends?
Nope. It's useless. It was a useless report put out by an industry association that had nothing to lose and everything to gain from the numbers being high. Listen, I applaud CEDIA, but they're a business just like any other business. And it's a useless report. It means absolutely nothing. So you mean to tell me that the industry organization that relies on those numbers being really high managed to put out a report where we have 2,000 additional integrators? Let me make sure I understand. So we can't get amplifiers. We have a hard time getting routers or any major network pieces. We can't get any components, but somehow we added 2,000 companies to the mix.
At the end of a pandemic.
At the end of a pandemic. Now, one thing I will say is that during this pandemic, a lot of people decided to try self-employment and owning their own business. And so I can see that being a possibility. But we're going into a recession in 2023 anyway, so we'll be back down below pre-pandemic by the end of 2023. So we can't really help that. That's not a political thing or a guess. It has to go that way. So basically, I look at this report and I say, wow, congratulations. You can use this for marketing for another 12 months. Other than that, it was useless to me. I don't, like you said, you're asking people to reveal their numbers online. Number one, most of the people taking that quiz don't really know all the real numbers. They're the CEOs or whatever. They have a general idea, but how much is it per product, per project? Man, I don't know. That's why I didn't take it, because I started looking at the questions and I was like, I'm not going to sit here and make up numbers. That just skews their results. So I didn't take it. But, I appreciate the efforts that CEDIA is putting in. I really do. I think they're trying to do a lot to show the strength and the power of our industry. And that's great. Maybe if they could get Google and Amazon out of our show, that might do a little more. But what I will say is that congratulations to them. They've got great marketing material for the next 12 months. And I look forward to seeing what the next numbers say, because I think that that marketing is going to be pretty hard to keep up when people are going out of business. And that's what's about to happen. We're about to see the same thing that we saw in 2009 and 2010. And I made it through that, brother. And I'm one of the few. I had several friends that didn't make it. So anyway, that's what I took away from that report. It was passive reading for me, which is a huge statement since I read everything our industry puts out. I almost didn't read it, but I did.
It's like you're saying, inflation is bad.
So Matt, just question as kind of new in the industry, and maybe this is a question for Stephen.
We don't want to hear from him.
Is there consolidation to integrators buy other companies, and is that a factor in this thing?
That happens. Well, the reason why the numbers are going to go down is because generally now you are talking to 3 exceptions to this rule, and they'll agree with this. But generally, you are either one of 3 things: a good business, like a good salesperson, you're a really good integrator, or you're really good at running a business. Okay? Those 3 things rarely exist in the same person. But what happens is you get people that are very good integrators and they can do good sales. So they start a company because they get 3 or 4 clients that throw a couple of $50,000, $60,000 projects at them. All of a sudden, I'm self-employed, way to go. But the problem is that there's way more to it. It's a totally different mentality. You almost have to be able to, like a fan has 1, 2, 3 clicks. When you're doing this job, you have to be able to click those clicks. So you can't let your business owner click interfere with your integrator click. And so you have to, it's really hard to do. So the reason why the numbers will go down has nothing to do with the quality of the integrator. It has to do with the fact that very few integrators know how to run a business. And so the good thing is out of that, there are a lot of companies that are going to gain some great employees that have a true respect for what it takes to run a company.
And keep in mind, 2020 was the year of all I got to do is buy a van, right? Everybody that thought they had some tech skills, all I got to do is buy a van. And you see all these new vans on the highway of such and such audio, video, home theater, and whatever else crap I can stick in your house. And when we go into this recession, it's going to weed all them back out, and they're going to go right back to working for the companies that they worked for before they bought that van.
Yeah, I live in a town of 450, 500,000 people. And over the pandemic, we added, I believe, at least 10 new companies that just popped up out of nowhere doing AV and shades and everything. And some of it's all right. I'm very tempted to see if, the main 5 of us that are here will probably still be here end of next year. I don't know how many of those new ones will stick around. Yeah. Vince, can you take, as a manufacturer, can you take anything out of these kind of reports? Do these mean anything to you guys? Or is this one of those things where, it's interesting information, we'll file that away, but it's not going to impact our day-to-day?
Yeah, I don't think that that the decisions that we make are based on those kind of reports. The decisions that we make, I think, are come from talking to people like Steven and other integration partners that we've got to see what what we need to do. But the one thing that we talked a little bit, Matt, before we started this recording. I used to be in the office automation side, right? And it's a kind of a very similar, business model, right? Where you have these independent copy machine dealers, and then you've got the big copy machine manufacturers. And the trend in that market was consolidation. That's why I asked that question. Yeah. Where once you got so many devices under your roof, you were worth a certain amount, and then the big guy in that market would buy you up. And I was just wondering if that's the same kind of model that's going on in our little neck of the woods here.
And that is happening. Integration companies, there's some down in Austin that just happened. The Bravos thing happened, and so I mean that's new to the integrator for the most part, but that was spurred on by everybody else doing it.
Thanks for watching the first segment of this week's episode. To catch the entire show, please click the link below or visit avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.